Dear PlayStation,
I got a tip that you were making the PS3 $2.99. Confirm or deny?
$2.99? Bernie, you can't believe everything you read on the internet. That's how World War I got started. While $2.99 for the sweetest gaming, Blu-ray playing, movie downloading system in the world would be fantastic. No comment.
This will be the third video where I go over fully playable games for the PS3 emulator, but unlike before, I will include 50 games instead of just the 25. For a game to qualify for this list, it cannot have frequent crashes, audio skipping, or graphical bugs. Please note, I'm aware that most of these are available on PC. If I just included exclusives, this would be a very short list. With that out of the way, let's get started.
Where am I? Alright, I know you're confused right now. I can explain everything, but you gotta trust me, okay? Listen, you're in terrible danger.
Dead Space 2 is the most critically acclaimed game in the series. It has a very intriguing story and arguably the best level design. You also get to revisit the Ishimura at some point during your escape. It's remarkable how well this game runs on the emulator, given its advanced graphics. But as you can see, the proof is in the pudding.
Jeter's on with the lead-off single. Damon is up next. Man on first, nobody out.
Fans, don't forget you can come in your favorite player's autograph up to 30 minutes prior to the game start.
The pitch. That's a strike inside corner.
MLB The Show has issues running on RPCS3, so the next best baseball game would be the Bigs. I live outside North America, so my knowledge of the sport is limited, but I do admire the visuals of the game, and it feels very true to what I've seen on television. The original Splinter Cell games were ported to 7th-gen consoles, including the PlayStation 3. The Trilogy were sold together in the HD collection, but to me they look like the PC versions. However, you may be surprised to know that RPCS3 is the only emulator that actually renders these games perfectly. Dolphin and PCSX2 still have niggling issues running the Splinter Cell games. Your mileage may vary with Colin McRae Dirt 3. If you have a decent rig, you'll have an enjoyable experience, but with lower spec hardware, you'll probably have to endure some audio crackles. Apart from that, Dirt 3 should be fully playable on the emulator. I need to add that the game has been removed from all storefronts due to licensing issues. So unless you plan on pirating the PC version, this is the only way to play it.
But I have to say, showing yourself above that crowd earlier was an excellent move. Nice.
I can't believe it took me 3 videos to talk about Persona 5, but here we are. It was arguably the most sought-after exclusive on the PS3, and one of the main reasons for the emulator to even exist. In fact, in the early days of RPCS3, it was known as the Persona emulator. That's how popular the game is. Atlus is currently working on a Steam version, but until its release, feel free to play Persona 5 on the emulator. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure All-Star Battle has beautiful, cel-shaded graphics. But its strength is its fast-paced gameplay. There are 40 characters to choose from, and they are all taken from the manga's story arcs. This one should appeal to fans of the series, as well as gamers who prefer fighting games.
He can't get out, and we're safe! Really? What's stopping him going out the back? There's a bat. You cold? Of course I'm cold. It's like 10 below out here, and Harley left us outside to freeze to death. It's Batman!
Arkham City took everything from Arkham Asylum and dialed the action to 11. It's over the top, full of plot twists and oversaturated with lore, but that's what makes it so much fun. There's also no barrier to entry, thanks to the simple controls and forgiving combat. Surprisingly, it runs really well on the emulator, but if you already own it on PC, that would still be the best way to play.
Well, I showed up, so what do you think?
I think you haven't changed a bit. Come on, it'll be just like old times.
Thief was probably one of the most underrated games on 7th gen consoles. It might have been better received if the developer had avoided calling it Thief, because it simply didn't have the same satisfying exploration or likable protagonist like the original PC exclusives. But it did have a decent story. Plus, some very unique mechanics were introduced, which helped to make the stealth gameplay feel more engrossing. Dawn of the Dragon is the third and final installment in the Legend of Spyro Trilogy. The game can be played co-op or single-player, and you can switch between Spyro and Cinder. Also, this was the first Spyro game with free flight, which allows Spyro and Cinder to fly at any time. I actually prefer the Legend of Spyro series to the original games because they feel more mature. Rainbow Six, Vegas 1 and Vegas 2 were the pinnacle of tactical shooters. The second game story ran concurrently with the first, and several characters returned in the sequel. However, I did find the controls more challenging with a gamepad, especially when giving orders to my teammates. In my opinion, these games are best played with a keyboard and mouse.
Be wary of pickpockets. Have a nice day.
Amy, where are you?
Amy depicts the journey of an autistic child with supernatural powers and her protector Lana. The controls are a little bit clunky, and the voice acting isn't that great, but the story is decent and the world is atmospheric. I would recommend Amy, simply because it's a good console exclusive.
I'm gonna mow the lawn on the way out, so heads up and butts down, amigos. You freaking monster!
Earth Defense Force, Insect Armageddon has no direct connection to the previous games in the series, but it's built on the same concept of defeating hordes of insects with varieties of weapons. It can become somewhat repetitive after a while, but in short bursts there's a lot of fun to be had. If you want, you can pick it up on Steam. These days, it's very cheap on the platform.
I'll handle these guys.
Trust in your weapon.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Out of the Shadows, was ported to the PS3 almost a year after it was released on the Xbox 360, and this allowed the developers some time to polish the game and iron out the bugs. Regardless, the story and mechanics were panned by critics. While it won't blow anybody away, I think it's well suited to younger gamers.
Voila! These are Mune Sparkers. Collect 100 and you'll be able to musically come back to life, even if you do lose all your heads.
Sony used to take a lot of chances with their games, especially on older consoles, and Puppeteer is symbolic of what they used to be capable of. It's a very unique game, where the character uses different heads to unlock special abilities. The game is presented as a puppet show in front of an audience, who can be heard cheering and laughing when impressive actions take place.
What? Something's not right with this guy.
Just like with the Umbrella Chronicles, Capcom decided to port Darkside Chronicles over as well. It was originally made for the Nintendo Wii, but poor sales urged the developer to release it on the PS3. It's basically an on-rails shooter, but it's a really good one, reimagining many scenes from earlier games in the series, like Resident Evil 2 and Code Veronica. You can't upscale the resolution on the emulator yet, so 720p resolution is the highest it can go.
There you are. Your mother told me the Terran had summoned you, so I didn't want to interrupt. I fear your hound has the kitchens in uproar once again, and is threatening to leave. No matter how the
Upon release, Dragon Age Origins was a massive success on every platform, including the PS3. It's called Origins because you get to choose playable characters from different races and classes, and each option you choose has a different origin story. Gameplay is similar to older role-playing games like Baldur's Gate, allowing you to plan combat moves in advance. It's still one of the most critically acclaimed Western RPGs of all time.
I don't believe this! 40 Adam 30 heading east on Fremont in pursuit of Jericho, requesting backup now!
Driver San Francisco sees players traversing a fictional version of San Francisco and the Bay Area, conducting missions through the use of licensed real-world cars, with the ability to shift into any vehicle. I think it's easily the best game in the series, so you should try this if you like racing games in general. The graphics are nice as well, so what's not to like? Hit and Run is still the best game of the entire franchise, but there are others that deserve attention as well, like Road Rage and The Simpsons Game. Speaking of The Simpsons Game, it was released on virtually every platform except the PC. There's some great humor, and I suppose the story is okay. But you can probably finish this in one sitting.
So long!
This is an HD remastered collection of 3 games in Square Enix's Kingdom Hearts series, and these are Kingdom Hearts 2, Birth by Sleep and Recoded. For Kingdom Hearts 2, the backgrounds and textures had to be adjusted for widescreen televisions. The graphics are overall far superior to the PS2 version, but the user interface in particular has been remastered quite well.
My feet!
Bulletstorm was the most surprising shooter on 7th-gen consoles. The point of the game was to rack up points by killing enemies in unique ways. You can kick, throw a whip, and even bend bullets to hit enemies from long distances. I actually finished it twice, which should tell you how good it is. The story was predictable, but despite that I found it enjoyable, and the environments are also beautiful. This covers the first 20 games on this list. If you like what you're seeing, please give a like for the algorithm. To help keep the length of my video short, I won't narrate any further, but please continue watching since there's still 30 games to go.
Bye.